announcer Thomas Triber. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the time has arrived for Inside Boxing Weekly. So here are your hosts, Mike Goodpaster, John Einreinhofer, and Jeremiah Preisser on the Grueling Truth Sports Network.
Welcome, everybody, to Inside Boxing Weekly on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I am your co-host for Inside Boxing Weekly, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host. First up, Jeremiah Preisser. How you doing, Jeremiah?
I am doing real damn well. Let's talk some boxing, fellas.
And, of course, our resident lawyer. I say that like I don't like lawyers. And I don't generally, but I like this one no matter what it sounds like when we do the show. John Einreinhofer. How you doing, John?
Thanks, Mike. And we like to say everybody likes us when they need us, but then the other times it's okay for them not to like us.
No, then they don't even like you because you got to pay you guys too much money. It's like mechanics. You should have just been a mechanic. Wouldn't that have been easier? And you get to screw people over even worse.
I guess mechanics, maybe mechanics take more grief to come to think about it.
I'll tell you, they may make more money too. I mean, I've taken my car in before, and they tell me it's like $120 an hour. I'm like, damn.
Yes, their hourly rates are probably comparable.
Yeah, and I think it takes them a little while longer too to get it done than you guys do on a case even. But let's go ahead.
That's why there's no mechanics on Inside Boxing Weekly. you can't afford them.
Yeah, we can't afford them. Jeremiah, I don't know what he does. I just live in a trailer in Indiana, so. All right,
I live
guys.
in a cabin in Colorado.
No, you don't. You don't live in a cabin, do you?
No, I don't.
Okay, you have me excited. John, do you live like up in the woods all by yourself with no cell service except when you come off the hill to talk to us?
Well, that's great. I get to go back and forth, West Virginia and New Jersey. I'm in my West Virginia shift right now, and in my West Virginia shift, though, I am on top of a little mountain. So
there you go. So your cell service should be better.
Completely. Yeah, it's not right. There's nothing blocking me up here. I'm on top of the mountain.
All right, let's start off by talking about last weekend's fights. We'll preview the exciting action that we're looking forward to this weekend. I'm going to watch that new football league instead, I think. But when we look at it, we're going to start off with Teofimo Lopez, who got the KO in 7 over Diego Magdaleno. I have not changed my opinion off of this fight about Lopez, John. I think he's the real deal.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. I'm extremely impressed with the guy. I said even before the fight, I could have gone either way in his very early fights. I was on the bandwagon, and nothing's gotten me off the bandwagon. I'm gripping on the bandwagon tight now after last week. Very impressive performance. Because you look at a fight like that, Magdaleno was trying. I mean, he was getting dominated, but he was trying. He wasn't some guy that just come down and going to get hit with a shot and just fall down and go away.
Yeah, he's a good fighter, too, and that's what made this so impressive.
Exactly. I mean, the guy can fight, and another second devastating KO in a row. And when you see a guy that can box, has speed and power, and Lopez has the youth, I'm not saying he's going to beat him, but I'd like to. I wouldn't mind seeing him in with Lomachenko at this point. We get all these marinating, and then fights don't happen and things like that. Top Ranks got both guys. I figure if Lopez loses to Lomachenko, if he's just a little too much for him at this point, it's a decision. It's something like Canelo and Mayweather. It's not going to set Lopez back at all. And, in terms of who's actually available, who else would you rather really see Lomachenko fight that is actually available?
Yeah. Jeremiah, what was your take on Lopez?
No, absolutely. I was impressed just like
you
fellas.
So absolutely you believe he could give Lomachenko a fight and possibly beat him. Is that what you're saying, Jeremiah?
Well, I don't think he beats him, but I think John is. Well, come on. I mean, the guy still only has 12 fights, and
how many does Lomachenko have?
Well, he's stepped up his competition far quicker than Lopez has. But here's my thing: I'm certainly impressed with the guy. Like John, and you think, I mean, the kid looks like he has just about everything. I mean, speed, power. His combination punching is creative. He goes to the body, he goes to the head, he knows when to lead with the jab. His defense is rock solid. My only thing is I was kind of confused with Magdaleno's approach. Is he went in there and he showed some grit and he had a little fire in him and he didn't mind trading a little bit. I was just wondering why the hell he didn't get on his bicycle and stick and move a little bit. If there's two areas of interest for me when it comes to Lopez, it's his chin. Well, let's make it three. It's his chin, it's his heart, and it's whether or not he can track down a guy who's a boxer mover, because generally those type of guys give just about everybody trouble. So I want to see him, with a little more experience. But like John said, I mean, when you're evaluating the landscape at 135 and you're asking yourself, who can Lomachenko fight that might give him a test? It's Lopez. I mean, Lopez would beat the crap out of Anthony Crolla. Okay, so we don't.
Right.
We talked about
John would
this.
beat the crap out of Anthony Crolla.
Well, and we talked about this on. No, we
Jeremiah
talked about
makes the right point. That's the key. Is that people get
nobody.
stupid. I mean, Lopez would kill Corolla right now. I mean, not literally, hopefully.
How about
but, I
this?
mean,
Would
it would be
Lopez,
bad.
John, Jeremiah, you both can weigh on this. John first, because Jeremiah's of course, he's the leader of the Vasyl Lomachenko fan club. But would you favor? What do you think Lopez would do against Linares?
I think he'd take out Linares quick right now at this stage.
What about Comey?
Lopez and Comey would be a good fight, because Comey's coming on with Rozier. He had another good performance with Rozier, and he looks a lot better. But I think Lopez would probably have too much, because even though they were close, I did think that Comey lost to Easter and Shavakov. Now, that was before he got Rozier, and he is better. But he is also 31 years old. And, of course, Lopez, not as much experience. He's 21, but still just with the reflexes, the youth, and then all the skill, like Jeremiah correctly said he has, and the power. I think that, he'd probably be the best challenge for Lomachenko right now. I'm not saying I'd have a pick of him over Lomachenko, but I think he'd have a real chance, because as good as Lomachenko is, you start looking in hindsight at the fights with Linares and Pedraza, and I don't think it's all that he's at lightweight, because those guys had fought at lower weights too. Lomachenko himself is a speed and reflex guy. He's on the other side of 30 now, and he could just be slowing down a little bit, and that's what I think could make a fight with a really young guy like Lopez really intriguing.
Well, and I would say real quickly that Lopez already, the news has been broken that he's having a quick turnaround time, and he's already going to be scheduled for the the Terrence Crawford Khan undercard. So, so good for this kid. I mean, he's moving up. He's got a lot of confidence. I know he got a lot of flack for his post-knockout celebration. But
why did he? Well, I mean, Max Kellerman, is an idiot. I mean, he didn't go over and check on him. I mean, shit, it was a fight. He knocked him out. What the hell do you want from him? I mean, he was excited. He's a young kid. He's on TV. He knocks the dude out. His first thought was, I won, not, I'm going to go check on this guy. And I'm sorry. Maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe I'm just an asshole. I'm pretty sure I probably am, by the way. But when I look at this, you're fighting a dude. You're trying to take his head off. He's trying to take your head off. I think Max Kellerman, who I'm betting's probably never really been in a fight, doesn't understand that, number one. And number two, the mentality of a dude when he's knocking somebody out, I mean, you can't fault him for that, I don't think.
Well, I'd say that he's also young. So, I mean, the guy has room to learn and correct his mistakes. I mean, he's kind of been, sort of apologetic in some of his messages afterwards. So I'm not going to give him too hard of a time. And I know a lot of people afterwards were kind of shrieking about the stoppage because Magdaleno's people kept sending him out. And a lot of people were like, okay, well, you should have thrown in the towel the round before. He had no chance in it. I actually didn't get to that point where I was disgusted, like, oh my God, you got to stop the fight. You could have prevented further damage. I mean, I understand that point, but I don't know. While I was watching the fight, I wasn't in that camp, where I was just, my stomach was turning and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he took that beating. I mean, I like to see the knockouts, to be honest with you. And I know it's this, when you're a boxing fan, there's this conflict, right? You want the guys to be safe, but you also want to see these spectacular knockouts. And I don't know, it was just me, maybe just that night, but I was just kind of in the camp where I wanted to see the knockout. I wanted to see Lopez, drop him and get the 10 count. So, yeah, I just wasn't in that camp.
I think Jeremiah makes a good point there. I'm tired, and it's not a bloodthirsty type thing either, but it's what sport we're dealing with is boxing. I'm tired of commentators on different networks. They're supposed to be covering the sport of boxing, and then when a guy starts taking punishment, they start screaming for the corner to they start screaming for the corner to stop the fight, like there's nurses in the corner instead of boxing trainers or something like that. And here's something that's even was a policy. I think it still is technically, in Nevada, because of and now in many more states, you can in West Virginia, New Jersey. You can sports gamble now. You can't have corners jumping in, stopping fights all the time. That's why we have a referee and a doctor. In other words, if like when Kellerman and these, and we see other networks doing it too. It's not only Kellerman, but right, I've seen him do it more than any of them. When they start screaming the corner should stop the fight, the corner should stop the fight. I mean, what the hell is the referee and the doctor's job then? I mean, the referee and the doctor are supposed to determine if the guy can't go on or not.
Well, actually, I'll tell you this, though. I think it is on the corner if they're taking care of their fighter, but maybe they didn't see it the same way Max Kellerman did, so maybe Max should just shut the hell up.
Yeah, I'm not saying the corner shouldn't care and you want the corner sending the guy out for beatings, but we do have a referee that's their job, and we do have a doctor, and that's their job. And, nothing was mentioned Saturday night about when the commentators were screaming about whether the referee or the doctor should have stepped in. They were just screaming at Magdalena's corner. And, maybe they had some reason for letting him go out there. And like Jeremiah said, a lot of boxing's knockouts. Emanuel Stewart used to say it all the time. It's professional boxing. So, I think Jeremiah does make a good point. Again, you don't want to sound too bloodthirsty or brutal, but it is a good point by Jeremiah that if we're going to have corners stepping in before guys ever get knocked out, when, the heat gets turned up a little bit in a fight, you're not going to have a lot of entertainment value.
No, and you're never going to have a fighter that... Yeah, let's look at it. Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. I mean, chances are everybody thought that should have been stopped. And we've seen fights
what if the corner
stop
would
for
have
a
just
lot
thrown the
less.
towel in?
Yeah, we've seen fights stop for a lot less than that.
Yeah, we have. I mean, definitely have. I mean, you could have. What if the Fury would have gone down like that, and the corner would have just thrown the towel in or come through the ropes and
everybody would have said what a great
people.
job they did on taking care of their fighter. But,
yeah, well, I mean, if we keep applying this modern mentality to other fights, I mean, we had John Raspani on last night. Okay, you're watching Gotti Ward 1, right? And Ward lands that ferocious left hook to the body.
Could have been stopped either way by either corner about 10 times each.
Yeah, and that's my thing is, again, you got to find the balance here. Safety is important, but you need the entertainment value. If you have corners jumping in constantly from here on out, you're going to turn people away from the sport.
Well,
yeah, I think the real answer is the referee and the doctor have to be good and really do their job right. They're under that pressure already, but it's really on them. That's what they're for. That's why we have a referee and a ringside physician. And it's not that we want corners, having guys take beatings, but it's the referee and the doctor's job. That's where they're there, and we've got to look at them to do their job. And it is boxing. We can't have the commentators screaming at them either, a referee or a doctor. Every time a guy's taking a beating at the end of the fight, screaming that it should have been stopped a bit earlier. I'm with Jeremiah there. I've been tired that commentators doing that for years, and I don't want anybody getting seriously injured in the sport. I want the boxers safe and getting as much as possible, but it is the sport of boxing, and we have to start out at that point if we're going to have this sport it's got to be. That's got to be the sport. It is the sport of boxing. The knockouts are involved, so you can't have fights being stopped too quickly all the time by corners, doctors, or referees.
All right, next up, Oscar Valdez, who is not very good in my estimation, beat a outman Carmen Tomasone, or whatever the hell his name is. We won't have to say it again anyways, by a 7th-round KO. Am I the only person here, Jeremiah, that is not impressed by Oscar Valdez?
I mean, he might be. To be honest with you, I was more impressed with the Italian's kiss on his new fiance than anything else. I think that was the highlight.
Yeah,
I think that was the highlight.
I'll tell you, that hurts boxing more than not stopping fights, John. What we saw when he proposes after he gets his ass beat half to death, that was just.
Well, at least when Caleb Plant did it, he won. He won a big victory. Then we got this Cabasoni guy copying him a few weeks later after he gets beat up. He gets beat up by Valdez, and he's doing. I thought.
You know what I think would have been awesome if she would have just looked at him, shook her head no, and walked over and gave Oscar Valdez a kiss.
I did see a few guys tweet that out. They said, he was taking a chance there after taking that beating. Yeah. He might have said, no thanks. I'm changing my mind.
Yeah, and she was hot enough. Oscar wouldn't have turned her down, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but Valdez, I think he is overrated. I'm under, of course, being realistic about who he was in with. I thought maybe he was punching a little bit better, but I think in general, he's been overrated. I thought he was maybe punching a little bit. He's with Reynoso now. That was his first fight. It's hard to tell with the opposition. It's going to make any difference. They're talking about him coming back quick. I'm afraid it won't be with any stiff opposition, but he's a guy I could use to see back quick, to see he's with Reynoso, to see if he's getting any better, if it's helping. With his career so far, I have not been particularly impressed.
All right, Jeremiah, I don't know if you got to finish what you were saying or not until we interrupted you.
It's all right. I mean, there's not a whole lot to say. Well, to be honest with you, the Italian did show some guile in the beginning. I mean, he wasn't an Olympian. I mean, he wasn't a bum. He was jabbing nicely to the body, and he did a few things. Oscar Valdez took a few shots, but, his power just didn't really deter Valdez. So, Valdez just went out there and got the stoppage. But this is the thing, is when Valdez was coming up, and I know we talked about this, where we were like, okay, well, can Valdez adapt? Because it seems like he likes to fight. And initially, we thought that was a good thing because it has a certain appeal, and it does. But if he can't learn to be, condition himself and kind of do like what Kovalev did, where he showed some ingenuity and creativity, and he can stick to a game plan, Valdez he's going to take a loss because of that, but just because of that fighter's mentality. But he's a good fighter, and I think, him versus a guy like Warrington, I think that'd be a fun fight, and I'd like to see it.
All right, next up, Richard Comey beat the immortal Isa Chenia. I don't even know. What the hell's the difference? Comey knocked him out in the second round. Chinev or something, I don't know. But it was a second-round knockout on the stellar undercard. I thought Comey, and you brought this up earlier, John, I think Comey looks a lot better. I think he is at least somewhat of a threat to Lomachenko.
Yeah, I never thought I'd be saying it, but I agree. He's really looked good in these two fights with Rozier. He's been with Rozier 3, I think, overall. There was a no-hoper in there as well. But, his first fight with him, he blew away.
Just wasn't a no-hoper, John?
Luna, who's good. No, that's true.
This was a slight hoper.
But this was another no-hoper. But there was a no-hoper in between. Now, Luna, was a threat, and Comey had an extremely impressive performance and knocked him out, gave Luna his first loss. But this Chinev guy, wasn't any kind of threat. He's not a puncher, and he didn't bring much to the table. He hadn't fought anybody before this. But Comey looks good. He has improved enough. I wouldn't have picked it because, I have a lot of respect for Lomachenko's abilities, and I'm not saying he'd beat Lomachenko, but I am in the camp now that it became a fight that I was okay with. I was ready to see and be a great way we're going, it'd really be a great fight for ESPN compared to, some of the fights they've shown on regular ESPN, and Lomachenko's got very good ratings on there. So I was all gung-ho for it, but unfortunately Comey apparently hurt a knuckle, even though the knockout was that quick, and he's not going to be ready in time. And this is where we're getting Hearn ordering the WBA to give us Krolla, which is a joke.
God, I hope so. Me and Jeremiah have been waiting on that fight.
Oh my God. Yeah,
nothing like a non-puncher challenger who's less skilled.
It'd be all right if he's a non-puncher, but the skill level's not very high on Anthony Krolla.
Yeah, I mean, it's disappointing because, like John said, this is not the WBA making these decisions. This is Eddie Hearn. As I pointed out yesterday, so go look at Jorge Linares when he had the WBA trinket. Linares fought something like 3 Eddie Hearn guys in a row. Kevin Mitchell, who was at Krolla, and I can't remember now. But this is and I think Bob Arum would like to play along, partly because it's an easy win for Lomachenko. They can do it in England, so he's expanding his brand a bit, which is interesting.
Over there.
Exactly. I mean, I really have no interest in seeing that fight at all. I've heard, differing things from Lomachenko's camp, kind of indicating, I think initially they threw out the idea and saw that there was so much backlash against it that they were going to do something else. And I've still heard that, like, hey, Krolla, he's not really an option, maybe down the road or whatnot. So, you look at the landscape and going back to Lopez is probably the best challenger right now. I mean, just, looking at transnationals rankings, Mikey Garcia, that's not happening. Robert Easter I think Robert Easter already has, he's fighting Rances Bartholomew. Yeah, he's fighting Bartholomew. Yeah, it is. And you got to give Easter credit for taking on tough test after tough test. So he's unavailable. Comey is unavailable. Pedraza doesn't even make any sense. Campbell, no, I don't think so. Beltran, obviously. Now,
but so to me, it's not going to make any difference.
No, it doesn't. So what do you do? I mean, if I was Lomachenko and I was surveying the landscape, I would try to bring somebody up from 130. Davis, he's fighting. Maybe that would be a quick. I'd like to see that. Maybe Burchelt, but I think Burchelt just called his fight off with Vargas, which is an unnecessary rematch. So I don't know, Machado, or I don't know where you go. I mean, it's unfortunate, but Krolla is not the answer.
I wish what they do, to me, it'd just be creative. Instead of maybe the spring, maybe you make it summer and have them fight Lopez. And they're not going to do it. But I just wish, since Top Rank can just make that, I just wish they'd just be creative and do it. But it's not going to happen.
No. It won't. Next up, Sergey Kovalev with a unanimous 12-round decision over Alvarez. 116-112, 116-112, which are bad scores as always. 120-108, which I think is more like it. I had it 118-110. I had doubts about Kovalev just because he tired out the last fight. But as we said, John, the last fight, Kovalev won every round up until when he got knocked out. And I think this has to be, so far, Buddy McGirt's most shining moment, because I think he's the first trainer that has gotten Sergey Kovalev to actually listen to him.
Yeah, great job by McGirt and Kovalev combined. It was, Kovalev, I think his amateur pedigree and his professional experience combined with the experience and the strategic abilities of Buddy McGirt, and Buddy McGirt had a great game plan, and Kovalev did listen and follow it. So Kovalev listened on this one, and it was a great combination. I only gave Alvarez 2 rounds. I thought the most too. You could even think about giving him was 3, and I thought that would be extremely generous giving him 3. I just strained to give him 2. Kovalev just fought a great fight with McGirt's help. I think that, and I don't blame Kovalev on this one. He had everything at stake, so to speak. in the 12th round, he played it safe in the sense that I think he could have gotten Alvarez out of there. But I could see why, he didn't want to take the risk, and McGirt didn't want him to take the risks. I don't have any problem with it, but I just think if he was maybe in a situation with less at stake, he could have opened up a little more and got him out of there in the 12th. But, great performance. And, I like, guys like Buddy McGirt and I think Eddie Mustafa Muhammad. Sometimes they don't always get the credit because, sometimes they're working with guys that aren't that good. But you can see that they make the most out of the guys they're working with, and that's why I always consider them a threat to come up with a good game plan when they're involved with anybody. And then when they actually are involved with somebody who's got talent, like a Kovalev with McGirt this time, it can be a dangerous combination for the opposition, and that's what happened. I thought going in, that's what was going to happen on this one, but it really worked out perfectly for Kovalev, McGirt, and something like Eddie Mustafa Muhammad did that with Rob Brandt against Murata. He's coming in there with Rob Brandt. He's got to figure out a way to do something, and he gets the big upset working with Brandt. But McGirt did that with Kovalev here. Kovalev was the underdog, and it was a great combo.
Hello?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody's breaking up.
Something cut out there. All right. So what was your take on Kovalev, Jeremiah, and where do you think this puts him in the hierarchy of the light heavyweight division?
All right. Well, first off, we gotta give credit to John. I mean, he was the one who was, of a lot of people that I saw, he was the clearest. One of the clearest in saying, hey, this reformation is possible, and he took Kovalev for the win, and good for him. That was a great call, John. And I know a lot of us. Yeah, no problem. And
I still doesn't make up for that Shabransky over Kovalev, though. Go ahead.
That's okay. If he keeps making good prediction after good prediction, he'll keep throwing the dirt on that old one, and gain some of his prior credibility back. But I was impressed. I mean, what I really liked was, I know a lot of people are making a lot about Kovalev's performance, and what I found most interesting about it was almost as if he boiled his style down. You know what I mean? So instead of, kind of just touching guys and then going to the power shots in the middle of the fight like he did in the first fight, he was just touching them, and he's just touching them. And Andre Ward was making a great point that Kovalev hits so hard that he doesn't need to put weight into every single shot that he has. And I would still argue that Kovalev is certainly one of the biggest punchers in the sport. It's arguably the biggest. I know he hasn't scored a big, knockout in a while, but you just see that Alvarez, you could see that he was just kind of playing it as if it was going to happen the same way it happened in the first fight, but he just couldn't, he wasn't getting the counter-punching opportunities he was in the first fight because Kovalev was bringing his hands back because he was just touching them. And I was impressed. I mean, he stayed on the jab. Whenever he did get hit cleanly, he took the play by, jabbing instantly or throwing a power shot back. He kept throwing that right hook around the guard of Alvarez, and you could see that Alvarez was bothered. Alvarez wasn't jabbing enough himself. He wasn't trying to pick his spots. I mean, it was just too clear that the right hand was his go-to punch. And Kovalev, again, because he wasn't overcommitting, it was kind of like a winky right type thing, where, Winky Wright would just touch you, right? His hands they were from point A to point B so quickly and then back to the guard that you didn't have much time to counterpunch. And it was a damn fine performance. And I think this puts him right back at the top of the division, aside from Kovalev, the real champion that is. Because Kovalev was considered the number one guy in the rankings prior to the first Alvarez fight. So I think
is the real champion?
Yes, yeah. Gvozdyk beat Stevenson, the lineal champion.
Stevenson won the champion. I go by the old ring rule. If you don't fight somebody in the top 5 every year or every 2 years, you're not the champion anymore. So screw
well,
that.
and I hope one day we can get a governing body so we can eliminate some of this gray area.
You've got one. It's me. I just told you I didn't think that he was the champion.
All right. Okay. Well,
I think this. I think Sergey Kovalev beats any of these guys right now because I don't think any of these guys outside of the power can deal with the skill. Remember, this is a guy who in the first fight we all thought beat Andre Ward.
Yeah. Well, and I think, the Hall of Fame talks for Kovalev would be a bit brighter if he did get that official decision. But I don't know. I'm still up in the air about the other top guys. I mean, I do think Gvozdyk is sharp. I think he's a good counterpuncher. He's mobile. If I was, you asked about what I think his direction should be, and if I was managing Kovalev, I would go towards Artur Beterbiev. The reason being, Bivol is he's sprightly, he's young, he's got this youthful vigor. I still think Kovalev is better skilled than him at the moment, but Bivol is a good puncher. He's accurate, he's sharp. Gvozdyk, he has some chin issues like we saw with Karpency and Stevenson, but he's mobile, right? He has the best footwork of the bunch. He can punch a little bit too. His counterpunching is the best of the guys. For me, Beterbiev is the most basic. And I say that, he...
Real quick, my point is this. If I'm an older Kovalev, don't I want to go after the guys that are better right now? Because I'm going to have an even harder time beating them a year from now.
Well, yeah, and I wouldn't mind that at all. It's not my thing. I'm just saying, if you're doing a risk cost analysis or something, Beterbiev I think would sell well too because he's from Canada. He's been fighting out of Canada. Stevenson, is fighting out of Canada. But I just think Beterbiev, he's more basic than the other guys. He relies on hooks more. He's not as good of a jabber. To me, defensively, he's less skilled than the other guys. He's just a bit too upright. And I think his chin is probably the worst guys of that bunch. And he's the only guy who Kovalev called out by name. Kovalev did say the other, title holders, but he did call Beterbiev out by name. So if I was managing him, I would go after Beterbiev. And I think Gvozdyk is probably going to be bogged down anyways. I think he gets a... with the stupid trinket stuff, but I think he gets a voluntary, and then I think he's supposed to fight Marcus Brown, which would be good. But I wouldn't mind him seeing any of those guys. I mean, really, I want to see the best of the, best fight the best. But I think if you're, talk about risk right now, I think Beterbiev's the easiest.
All right.
And apparently, I actually like it because, again, we don't need 168. Yesterday, word coming out from them, apparently Callum Smith is saying he's willing to take him on. And that might not be a bad fight. I think Kovalev would be favored in it, but it's not horrible.
No, and I mean Callum Smith is a dude that there's no reason to stay at 168 unless Canelo's coming back up here to fight you because there's nothing else in the division.
So apparently, word maybe is that Canelo's not going that direction just yet. So maybe that's why he's talking Kovalev, but. Only because sometimes now, we're coming off this big win, even though, age-wise, it might be best for him to take on, some of the guys like Beterbiev now or Bivol. If it doesn't happen, I mean, the Callum Smith option might not be bad. But like Jeremiah said, I think, Beterbiev apparently now is, I'm trying to think. That's right. He just pulled out. That's what I'm trying to get this straight. Yeah, it could be Kovalev. He just pulled out of the zone stuff. So I think he's going back with ESPN. So Kovalev just fought on ESPN. So that might be a fit.
All right. Real quick, we're going to talk about Showtime's main event Saturday night. There's a bunch of other fights this weekend. After we talk about Gervonta Davis's fight, if you guys want to talk about it, you can talk about it for a minute or two. But the undercards and the main events on all these are a joke. And we'll start off with one of the bigger ones. Hugo Ruiz gets a shot at Davis's WBA junior lightweight title. I know somebody got hurt, Jeremiah, but couldn't they have found somebody better than Hugo Ruiz?
I don't know. You probably have to ask PBC about that. I mean, I don't know who is available, but... Yeah, it's unfortunate. I didn't even want to see Abner Mares. I mean, Mares was just too small. He's the guy. Right. Yeah. I mean, he's past his prime. I mean, he's had vision problems. That's why he pulled out. Initially, it was ruled as an elbow, and then it was shown that he had an eye issue. I think something about his retina. And this isn't the first time.
Yeah, he elbowed himself in the eye and got a detached retina.
And this isn't the first time that Mars has had vision problems. I mean, he was pulled out of the first fight against Cuellar because of he couldn't pass a vision test. So, yeah, it just seems like Mars is one of those guys who's on his way out the door. But yeah, I mean, Ruiz I think is 122 pounder, or was for a while. So I mean, this is a mismatch. I mean, we see that Davis is also a big 130 pounder, because I don't know if you guys heard, but Davis initially missed his weight by 0.2, so he came in at 130.2, and my guess is it was probably more because the scales are probably always rigged, So he came in at 130.2, had to boil down, got down to 129.8, and this is going to be a thudding. I mean, unless Davis is absolutely drained from trying to make the weight or something, I don't really see a chance for Ruiz. But it's one of those things, like, if Davis wins, and he should win, we really got to see him step up the competition. I mean, he's looked real good so far, and like John's talked about in the past, he's dynamic, he can punch, he's got a lot of speed. But we really have to see him against one of the best guys. I mean, this just isn't doing the trick. John?
Yeah, I think this is a case, I think weight things are discussed way too much, and I think a lot of observers misinterpret them. But this is one where it's not. I always go back to the 8 weight division thing, but if there were 8 weight divisions, Davis would be a lightweight and Ruiz would be a featherweight. And when you're moving up one traditional class, that's when it matters. I mean, that's the rule of thumb I always use, and I think that's the one that works. So what I'm getting to is, on this one, you can say it's the weight, because I think Ruiz is a good fighter, but he just can't step up in weight to take on somebody as good as Davis, with the power and speed Davis has. And, he does it from a southpaw stance. And, if he's in shape, he has been devastating when he's in shape, with what he did with Cuellar and Pedraza. And, if Davis is in shape, now he did miss that 130 by, the 0.2, and then he got it down. But I like Jeremiah said, I don't even know why he's messing around. We don't need a 130-pound class. I don't need to know Gervonta Davis is good because he fights for some WBA belt, when they've got 2 belts in 17 weight classes and then 2 belts a division. Just, you don't need it. It doesn't matter. He should be up fighting at lightweight. There's no need to make this weight. We're going to see him against Ruiz tomorrow night. So if he's going to be in there with him, then he's got to do his job, which in this case should be getting rid of Ruiz quickly and decisively, like he did with Cuellar and like he did with Pedraza. And I'm not sure how much that's going to tell you, except just to showcase for Davis. But he's got to do that. He's going to be in the ring tomorrow night, so we need to see that. He can't have a letdown like he had against that Fonseca guy, that disaster on the Mayweather-McGregor undercard, even though he ended up stopping him. I mean, that was a dreadful performance for a guy of his abilities. But I think Davis, in shape, he's going to have a big run for a few years where he's going to be a threat to anybody. You've got the promotional divide, or, it would be great to see him fight Lomachenko, but I'm not even mentioning that because with the promotional divide, I just don't see it being put together with PBC and Top Rank in the near future. So, I'd just like to see him make a statement here. And then how about, PBC could put him and Easter together? I mean, that would be at least more interesting. That would be a fight we'd like to see. I'm not saying it's the top guy you'd like to see Davis in with, but that would be a good one. And you got Mikey Garcia. If he loses to Errol Spence and he's back down fighting at lightweight 135 pounds, that'd be a great fight. So let's I think even right there, PBC could do more with him, but we don't need any more of what we're getting Saturday night and with this Ruiz fight, which is a mismatch because of the weights.
All right, do we need a Sunday night Jose Ramirez versus Jose Zepeda fight, Jeremiah?
Well, no, we don't need it, but I mean, Zepeda's actually not that bad. I think he kind of gets, buried under a lot of guys because he had one title fight and he lost against Terry Flanagan, but a lot of people forget that the reason he lost that fight was he got injured early. So I think that would have actually been an interesting bout had it gone on, but no, Zepeda also. And I think this is the most competitive fight of the weekend, at least in terms of headliners. I mean, Ramirez looks pretty good so far, and he's a come forward guy, throws a lot of punches, has pretty good power. And Zepeda is more of a boxer type. He's not a boxer mover for sure, but he is more of the boxer type. He does give you some lateral movement, but he can punch pretty well himself. So it's an interesting bout. It should be fun while it lasts. I mean, I expect Ramirez to win. I don't expect that they're going to put him in too deep because with the 140-pound tournament going on, there's just a lot of lucrative deals to be made from all that, especially in the aftermath. So I don't think they're going to put him in too hard. But, yeah, I expect Ramirez to win here. But, again, it's the most competitive headlining card of the weekend.
All right. There's a bunch of undercard. Or, John, did you want to talk about Ramirez?
Yeah, I did just want to mention that. I think Jose Ramirez has proven to me that he's a good enough fighter. I don't think he should be lost in the shuffle of everything. That's why I think it's good that he's on. I'm not sure what Zepeda can give him. But, Jose Ramirez is definitely a good fighter. He draws very well in Fresno. He's from that area. So he's actually one of the few guys in modern boxing that's a real, especially in the U.S., that's a real good live draw. And Bob Arum, can't blame him for that. He tries to take advantage of that, but that's good. It's good for the atmosphere. It's going to be on a Sunday night, so that's all good. Hopefully Zepeda can give him a fight. But again, with the too many weight classes and the too many belts, a fight you don't hear mentioned that you should, to me, is, again, Top Rank could have Ramirez fight Terrence Crawford. We've got Crawford Khan, which nobody asks for, nobody wants. They've had trouble finding decent Crawford opponents, and you've got Jose Ramirez. I mean, that would be at least, I'm not saying he's going to beat Crawford, but that would be a good fight. That would be a good fight to put together. Maybe to Top Rank's credit, I mean, Gilberto Ramirez is going to 175 pounds right when Top Rank, in accordance with ESPN, is setting up some things with the light heavy. So I think that's the type of thing they should be doing. I've wanted that for a couple of years. We're getting that now. I'd like to see that also with Jose Ramirez. Let's start pointing. If the stuff's going to be in-house, let's start pointing Jose Ramirez at Terrence Crawford. But, he's got to start having some, he's had good performances, but he's got to keep them going and look impressive. And I'd like to see Top Rank heading more of that direction.
Man, that cut out again. All right. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. You don't hear a buzzing in the background, do you?
No.
Not really,
Just
no.
be on my end. I think it's my mic. All right. Undercard fights. Is there anything you guys want to bring up or talk about a little bit here?
Yeah, I would just, it's not a great fight. I mean, if we're just talking about, I don't know, like the semi-interesting stuff. I mean, it's so typical of the modern cards that you get. I mean, it's like you'll find a name, but they're in against light punchers. And Erickson Lubin versus Ishii Smith is one of those fights. I think Lubin has a lot of talent. I mean, the kid really, I think he is gifted, but his chin is going to be a problem, against the biggest guys. But yeah, against Ishii Smith, who's crafty, he's a guy who hangs in there. I'll give you some rounds. Yeah, maybe Lubin will learn some things from it, but it's not a great fight. But yeah, I don't know. That's one of the more interesting fights. Again, there's not a whole lot going on here, but yeah, that's one of the few fights that I intend to watch. But I expect I will be. I guess I will be interested to see if Lubin can actually get him out of there. Ishii Smith is really crafty. I mean, he's got a lot of experience. He's got a good chin. Want to see if, Lubin can make that statement, maybe get back into contention and score, a knockout.
All right, John, anything that catches your eye?
Well, I just would share my on the Ishii Smith Lubin. What has always kind of annoyed me about Ishii Smith is, it's just what he has, but he can't punch. So some people have liked this fight, and I'm with Jeremiah. I'm not going to completely discount Erickson Lubin because of one loss. Now, before he even did have that loss, I was not as high on him as some people, and I had said that. But I didn't think he was a bad fighter or anything like that, or was a guy that couldn't be a threat to get into some contention either. So I'm with Jeremiah. If you're going to have this type of a fight, and Ishii Smith has been durable throughout his career, this would be a fight for Erickson Lubin if he could stop Ishii Smith to make a big statement. And I think this is going to be streamed on Facebook. So, it's Showtime, but I think they're streaming it on Facebook. So this is going to be available to whoever wants to pick it up. So, I think that there's a chance there for Lubin to get people talking about him again. Other undercard stuff, I just talk in a real general sense because Sunday night I think they're starting at 4, and Mike had mentioned this a few times. I decided to try it out. I did, and I like to comment on this stuff. I took the ESPN Plus plunge last weekend to check out what it was about and watch everything, and I got to say I did like the product. So the product itself was good to me. I got it through a PlayStation 4 and had a good picture and everything, and there's a lot on there. But what I don't like still, even after liking the product itself, is even if you're up to 2 million subscribers, it's more paying. You got to pay the $4.99 a month, and your maximum viewership is 2. But your maximum viewership is 2 million. I mean, if every single person that had ESPN Plus watched your fight, you would get 2 million. So and we know that's not going to happen. So it's just another spot where boxing is just not getting exposure. So the product itself was a little better than I expected, but it just doesn't bring the exposure you'd like to see.
Agree or disagree, Jeremiah?
Well, I mean, I think he does have a point. I mean, because it would be nice just to get it on ESPN itself, and then you would have a broader range of audience. I mean, yeah, it does make sense. And we talked about this last night about the exposure you're getting. I mean, it is simple. It is you download an app, you can rewatch fights anytime, and the quality is good and yada, yada, yada. But there is some limitations there. I mean, I think even Dillian White was what was he bashing Anthony Joshua for the other day about the exposure on DAZN? He was talking about like 17,000 people watched Anthony Joshua fight, Povetkin on the app. I mean, there is some limitations there. I mean, that is correct. I mean, but that's why, I'm not sure what ESPN's plan with it is, but that's why they're going to keep pushing the viewership, try to get people involved, and get sites to work with them and help subscribership on and on and on. And like I was talking about too, is I think John can confirm this. I haven't really looked at the deal, but it looks as if, from what I heard, that all these 2+ million subscribers are not, this isn't boxing numbers. This is just total. But I guess
there's total numbers, right?
Well, there's no way to know how many are there just for the boxing.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know if, I suppose you could do some marketing research and maybe, have a survey afterwards or whatnot. I don't know. Maybe they do. But, it's just hard to say. I mean, they did attribute to whoever the guy was on ESPN. He did attribute a good number of the subscribers to boxing. But, I'm still unsure of the number. And John is right in a sense. It does limit viewership. And we need it on free TV. We've been over this time and time again, guys.
Right. And there was one bad sign with that because they were at 1 million and they picked up 568,000 the week before the first UFC fight night on there. So there's pretty good circumstantial evidence that 568,000 that have come in the last 2 weeks were MMA fans. So, the boxing subscribership on there so far is probably not all that.
Well, I'm telling you this: if DAZN or ESPN Plus does not pick up the March 23rd fight in Cologne, Germany, between Manuel Char and Freza Kendo, I'm getting rid of both of them. That's for the WBA regular heavyweight title.
Yep.
But there's some fans
that'll tell you not be there, though.
But then there's some fans that'll tell you, which this to me is just wrong because it's not going to sell the sport enough, that they want to argue with you that, well, because the zone shows Manuel Char and Fresno Kendo at 4 on a Saturday afternoon or something, that's bonus content they're getting, that's good for their
I want to see it. I would watch that fight.
That's what I think with the sport.
I would watch the fight.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, just for the fun of it. I mean, I wouldn't pay for the fight, but I mean, just for the fun of it. I mean, to see Frezzo Kendo. When is the last time we saw Frezzo Kendo? I mean, it's kind of watching Frezzo Kendo fight would be like listening to like 90s music, and bring back some memories for you.
Hey, how about this? Vasily Lomachenko, if he still fights in LA April 12th, we could go crash at Risley's pad and cover the fight, Jeremiah.
That sounds like a plan to me. I know he'd let us into his nice, Southern California home.
Yeah.
You just gotta hope it's not. You guys just gotta hope it's not Anthony Corolla now. That's
all. Oh no, that makes it even better. I've got questions to ask then.
Yeah, I don't care either way. I mean, I don't care who he's fighting. If I get to go to LA and hang out, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a huge LA guy. I've been there a good number of times, and it's its own world. But to get away and watch Lomachenko, yeah, I don't think I've seen Lomachenko since his I think his second. Now, what did I watch? His fourth fight. So fifth fight, I think. Yeah, but it's been a while. So yeah, just get away from the weather. I mean, Denver weather's
pretty. You're
pretty.
Say the wife for a second.
Well, yeah, I want to get away from her too. I mean, come on, man. I mean, you know what it's like to be married. I love the wife and kids and everything, but I want to get away too.
No, because I forget too much stuff, and if my wife's not with me, I'm liable to end up in freaking Philadelphia or something. I won't know what the hell's going on. Do we have anything else we want to talk about, guys? John?
Yeah, I'll go first.
I said John first.
Okay.
John?
Oh, this is not actually what I kind of want to talk about, but I feel obligated to mention it. We also have on the zone, we have the Machado-Cancio fight, which shouldn't be any problem for Machado. He's looked pretty good, but the level of opposition hasn't been particularly good. Even Jezreel Corrales, he had that trouble with Castellanos before he fought Machado. So Machado's looked good, but we need to see him in against better opposition.
All right, Jeremiah.
Yeah, so I've got two things because I thought John would bring this up. So the first is the WBA and their scamming of guys and their trinkets. Machado with his belt, and then they demoted him and promoted Davis just on a whim. I mean, Keith Idec, I know I tagged you or I added you, John, on Twitter, some of this language, but Keith Idec wrote a great article, highlighting the absurdity of the WBA and all the trinkets that they have and just a scam that they're running. And there's no checks and balances because there's no governing body. The second point I want to make is about the WBA as well. And I saw this on Facebook and I thought it was pretty funny. So credit to Fred Wild. But let's see if Canelo Alvarez wants to move to 175 and fight Marcus Brown for his interim WBA title, and then he'll kind of be like Henry Armstrong in the sense that he'll have a so he'll have a WBA title at 160, 168, and 175, and then we can crown him a Hall of Famer right then and there.
Well, he'll already be crowned a Hall of Famer anyways, because all you got to do is be above average anymore. At least if you're a present-day fighter. If you're Rocky Lockridge, who belongs in the Hall of Fame, people ignore you. But, all right, we got anything else?
No, just it is a shame about Rocky, who was he was a tremendous fighter and, better than a lot of guys you hear more of. So, it was good to see him get some of the tributes, unfortunately.
Rocky Lockridge would have smacked the shit out of Lomachenko.
He'd have smacked the shit out of Chris John, I know that.
Oh, yeah. Especially since it was
he would have beaten Chris John. I'll say that too.
He would have beat Lomachenko. I mean, he beat Chavez. He could beat Lomachenko.
I thought he did beat Chavez. People weren't saying it much at the time.
I think Juan Laporte beat Chavez too, if you remember, John, at Madison Square Garden.
I thought he did too. Chavez got a lot of favorable calls.
Well, I mean, especially his 12th fight. I mean, this isn't brought up enough, in my opinion. But you look at his 12th fight, and initially he loses it on like a disqualification, and then the decision's overturned. I really want to see an in-depth article on this.
I would like to see you do it.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't even know whose arm I would twist to try to get that data, because that was down in Mexico, and it looks from what it appears on BoxRec, the explanation is that his manager or something was on the commission who overturned the decision later on. I mean, this wasn't one of those things where, okay, it was the next day. I mean, because remember...
Yeah, it was later that they changed it. Like, time had gone by, because I remember I was operating at the time with Chavez having had a loss. And then all of a sudden, this loss disappeared. Like, weeks later or whatever, all of a sudden the loss was gone.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what fight it was, but I watched it not that long ago. And Chavez, he was announced as 44-1. So we're talking about his 12th fight. Okay, he has a loss, and then he's all 30-something fights past that, and all of a sudden it gets overturned.
You need to write this article.
Pedro Fernandez, the boxing writer Pedro Fernandez used to write about it a lot. And back in the day, he used to write for that Flash, and and Boxing Update that was around and pre-internet when we had to get news.
Jeremiah
didn't know
about those. Was it Flash?
No.
Yeah, Flash was good.
Yeah. Yeah, Flash, it was good, but he was the main writer for Flash. I think that, if I recall, I think that's where Steve Kim started out. I think that's the first I ever saw Steve Kim's name, like 30 years ago. He must have been real young at the time, but he was just the guy who reported on fights. Yeah, I was young at the time too. But but Pedro Fernandez, he was exposing a lot of those Chavez things then. I remember, I knew about it, but I remember him writing about he wasn't a big, I don't think he still is, he wasn't a big Chavez fan. But
how about this? The gifts of Julio Cesar Chavez. You could talk about all the fights where he got a gift decision.
Well, my thing is, where do we access this information, John? I mean, if he was writing articles exposing this sort of stuff a long time ago, how do you gain that information now?
Yeah, he had one on. I remember I had put it up a few years ago, Jeremiah, before we were even podcasting and stuff. He was writing for something, Ring Talk. I think it's called Ring Talk, and he had some of his old stuff up about that. And remember, I sent it over to you, or we were on a thread or something, and I put it up there. But this was a few years ago though now. But I did discover it. So I think Ring Talk, I think, was the site where I pulled that off of, that he had been on there. And he's on Facebook too.
Find him on Facebook, get him to write it.
Pedro Pete Fernandez. But or if he wants to work, Jeremiah's good at writing those articles. It would be a real good one. They used to talk about Chavez's fight too. Like, remember Dwight Pratchett was like a glorified club fighter.
Yeah,
and
Dwight Pratchett was on the undercard of Holmes Spinks 1.
Yeah, it was like another close decision that they gave to Chavez. And
Pratchett he beat Pratchett's ass, I think. I don't think that was that close. Yeah, I think he dominated Pratchett.
Okay. Well, I might be. There's other ones like that I might be getting.
But I do remember watching it, wondering why everybody thought that he was that great. Because, I mean, he dominated Pratchett, but Pratchett wasn't very good. And I don't know how the hell I got on the undercard of Holmes Spinks 1. Well, yeah, I do, Don King. But, yeah, Dwight Pratchett's career record was 16-9.
Yeah, I knew it was something like that.
Jaime Garza beating Mario Miranda. When I look at this, though, he lost to Meldrick Taylor in 1985. That was Taylor's second professional fight, and then he fights Chavez 6 months later.
He
lost. I was thinking of great things like that. Yeah.
He lost to Juan Laporte. He lost to Laporte before Meldrick Taylor. So I would say this, from watching him, from looking at his record, he was a good fighter. He went the distance with Jimmy Paul in 1984. Jimmy Paul was highly skilled. But he was just a guy you could put in with somebody and you know that he would at least put up a decent fight without really being a threat to win, if you know what I mean. That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, Dwight Pratchett, I guarantee Don King had to pull some strings to get him ranked. And here's the strings he pulled. Here we go. After he loses to Meldrick Taylor in the second fight, he fights a guy named Tom Elston. He then gets a shot against Dennis Cruz for the NABF Super Featherweight title. He wins the Super Featherweight title against Dennis Cruz, who actually was not very good either, I don't think. But he wins against Dennis Cruz, and that's what got him the title fight. And
wow. Yeah.
Seriously, when you look at Thomas Cruz, or Dennis Cruz? Dennis Cruz fought nobody until after Guy Vilgas, or I remember this name, is who he beat to win the title. But the thing is this: before he won the title, his wins were against guys that were 1-5, 6-5, 12-10, 3-6, 0-9, 4-3, 6-29, 12-7, 1-4-1. After he fought Pratchett, he then fought Jackie Beard, who knocked him out, Rocky Lockridge, who knocked him out, Calvin Grove, who knocked him out and ended his career. So, yeah. Dwight Pratchett was just another in a long line of Julio Cesar Chavez taxi cab drivers. Only he was from the States. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's some clear political maneuvering, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, that's just typical of Don. And funny enough, the latest thing I heard on Don King is Martirosian said he's retiring because Don, he didn't really expose this information, but he said, thanks, Don. Okay, I'm retiring. Thanks, Don. So my guess is that Don's probably messing over his career, and he's like, well, can't get a fight. I'm retiring. I'm just going to train from now on.
Well, I'd like to thank Don, too, then, because I really don't want to see him fight again anyway. It's not a huge loss. But, yeah, I mean, let's see. What was the 12th fight? Who was the guy he lost to, and then they overturned it?
I don't know. I thought it was Miguel Ruiz or something.
Yeah, it was in Mexico, and it was when he hit the guy when he was down.
Yeah, Miguel Ruiz, who was 6-12. It says here he won by knockout. All right.
Yeah, but
they changed it to a knockout after he got DQ'd. Then they changed it.
All right.
Yeah, look at the week.
Actually, if you look at BoxRec, they've got an article about it that was written in 1990, and it was Chavez 68-0 appears spotless, but blemish from 1981 remains. And this guy Earl Gustke wrote an article, and it starts off, it's difficult to determine exactly what happened or why, but in 1981, when Chavez was still fighting in his hometown of Culiacan, Mexico, someone decided to tamper with history. On April 3rd of that year, when he was 11-0, Chavez fought Miguel Ruiz at Culiacan. At or shortly after the bell ending the first round, Chavez apparently knocked out Ruiz. The referee declared Chavez the loser on a first-round disqualification. 4 years later, it wound up in the ring record book. So it didn't get there until 4 years later, as a lost DQ1. It's the only edition that it's ever showed up in. Actually, before that, 1983 and 1984, the fight never even happened. It was simply deleted out of the ring record book. So,
yeah, the ring record book was the official records at that time.
Yeah,
that was before you had BoxRec.
Makes you wonder how many other ones have been deleted, huh?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Okay, the Culiacan Boxing Commission is who officially reversed the outcome of the fight.
Right. And look,
and it was something that the head of that commission, was in with the WBC. Surprise, he was some kind of WBC guy.
Well, I think one of the guys was his manager.
Yeah, there was. I know there was WBC.
Oh wait, this gets better. This is from a guy named Bob Yalen of ABC's boxing staff, was assigned several years ago to look into the 1981 fight. He says it was officially overturned the very next day by the Culiacan Commission and changed to a KO1 for Chavez, Yellen said. The official reason was the commission ruled Chavez had not hit the guy after the bell after all, as the referee had ruled. And Yellen says, I also found out that Chavez's manager, the late Ramon Felix, was the head of the Culiacan Commission at the time.
Okay, that's what Jeremiah was talking about.
That's good stuff.
How convenient. And this is why when people, and it's Mexicans, it really is, they're like, Mayweather's 50-0. Well, Chavez was like 80, like 90-0. Okay. That's all politics, man. That's all it is. I mean, come on. He lost to Pernell Whitaker, first off. And secondly, right. His manager being like, hey, we can just, nudging guys in a certain direction. I mean, come on. That's a conflict of interest right there, having your manager on a commission overturning decisions. And it's just so indicative of what goes on in boxing over and over again.
I know John will remember this name, but you remember Ralph Citro?
Yeah.
It sounds familiar. Yeah.
He published an annual boxing record book, Computer Boxing Update, which has always listed Chavez, up until whatever year this was done, as 67-1 at the time. Citro said the referee disqualified Chavez in that fight, and that's how I've always carried it. He said, I got it from a very good Culiacán source that the reversal was wrong, that it should have never happened.
Well,
I think that's true.
Well, and not only that. Well, think about it too. I mean, think about the decision was. God, what was the? Who did you say wrote that?
The article?
Ralph Citro. Yeah. What did you say, Ralph Citro?
The last one was Ralph Citro on that one.
Okay, yeah, and I don't know if it was him or it was somebody else who wrote about that fight, but they, I think, correctly pointed out that the referee is supposed to be the end-all, be-all when it comes to that sort of decision, right? I mean, there have been some stuff where I think we all acknowledge, like, hey, that was bad, maybe the commission can do something about that, and by and large, they don't really do anything, especially if it's politically motivated, but I thought that was the correct call. Like, you let the ref do his job, and you let that decision be that decision. I mean, because obviously, probably at the time they didn't know Chavez was going to turn out to be that good. So it was just, one of these guys,
right.
Chavez was probably favored. But yeah, you can tell. I mean, it's just so damn obvious that it became political. But no, like the one guy said, I don't know if it was Citro or somebody else, but hey, I don't know of instances, especially back then, where you would just go overturn a referee's decision.
All right, and this is the other thing about Chavez's record from looking at this. He fought 12 guys who were fighting in their professional debut. The last one was actually in 1983. And he fought for his career a total of 16 guys that when they fought him had never won a fight.
He used to fight often. That's the only thing I'll give him there. A lot,
Yeah, but you know what? Why give him that when, you're fighting guys that... I mean, it's kind of like the Duran thing, because you even get to 1986. Get this. In 1986, after beating Dwight Pratchett, or after beating Roger... Well, let's see. He beat Castillo, Mayweather, Pratchett, Jeff Bumpus. And then after the Jeff Bumpus fight, he fought a guy named Roberto Collins at the Riviera Hotel and Casino in Vegas, and Collins was 2-15.
Yeah, he used to fight. He used to fight a lot. He would go. A lot of them we'd fight in Mexico. In between.
Well, yeah, because that way if you lose, nobody will know.
Yeah, some of it was, they would say, which I think there was some truth to this, and even though I've never been a huge Chavez fan, I think they couldn't justify having a lot of his fights in Mexico money-wise, but then, his more major fights, but then he would stay active and he would take these fights against these lesser guys, a lot of them.
Yeah, but a few of these fights were in
I'm recalling were in Mexico. I know that those, I don't remember exactly what the reasoning was behind those.
There is no reasoning behind those. They were just trying to make a little bit of money real quick.
Yeah, but I remember him going. I remember him pop up in Mexico, fighting lesser guys in between some of these WBC.
How about this? At lightweight, does anybody here I think Floyd Mayweather would have beat Roberto Duran at lightweight.
Roberto Duran, or you mean Chavez?
Yeah, Chavez.
I have always thought that he would beat Chavez at lightweight.
I think he would beat him easily, too. Because we all know that, guys like that have a tendency to make Duran quit.
Well, Duran, I don't know about, Duran at lightweight, he's definitely in the top two of all time, I think. Him and Benny Leonard. Mayweather would present the style problem for him. I'm not saying he would necessarily beat him, but he would present the style problem for him.
Pernell Whitaker definitely beats him at lightweight.
Yeah, are we still talking about Duran, or are we talking about Chavez?
I don't even know now.
Okay, well, sticking with Chavez.
Keeping everybody off balance.
Yeah, I'm just confused. I am right now. I did a 2-hour show, a 1-hour show, and now we're over an hour here. So I've talked for like 5 hours. I'm not even sure what sport we're discussing anymore.
Yeah, we're talking about soccer, dude. Get with it. So
that's why we're talking about. So I'm good. Hey, here's the good one. When you look at this, here's my favorite fighter of all time. Of course, we all know who that was, right, Jeremiah?
Jerry Cooney.
No, Craig Houck.
Maybe it's Oh, okay, yeah.
Craig Houck's my favorite fighter of all time. But on Chavez's record, when you looked at he fought Craig Houck, it shows that Craig Houck was 51-25 when they fought. But if you click Craig Houck and it goes over to Craig Houck's page, he was 67-39. And the best part about this whole thing, if you look on BoxRec right now, the picture of him, his hair is not red like it is now, and there's no toupee. So I bet Craig is really pissed about that.
Oh, he's fuming.
Oh,
he's
yeah.
he's
He's mad. I mean, I can't wait till they make a movie about Craig.
better than Hands of Stone.
No. Nothing could be better than him.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed in him.
God, that was a horrible. A little disappointed.
I wanted to
that was
like
horrible.
it. I wanted to like it. I wanted
Except-
to like it.
Hey, you know,
Except the
Christopher
boobs,
Shelton,
right, John?
Christopher Shelton ranked it as the 8th greatest boxing movie ever.
He needs to see more boxing movies.
Well, I think he's seen them all, but his point was the tits were so good in it that he's ranking it in the top 10. Which will tell you that maybe he needs to get laid.
Yeah.
All right. But I had to bring up the Craig Houck because that's the fight.
It'd have to be something that severe to have liked that movie.
But the Craig Houck fight against Chavez is the one that was fixed because they just wanted to get it over with quickly, like it wouldn't have been over quickly anyways. But Craig Houck's trainer said that it was not a fixed fight. He said the reason Houck went down without being hit was because he was so scared that they had to drag him into the ring to fight Chavez.
Oh, Jesus. Well, that's not surprising. I mean, because of that bloated record. I mean, we know he was getting. Come on, we looked into this. I mean, you look at his record.
Who, Craig Houck? Yeah, because he was fighting fights under assumed names, and he never won 57 fights. That's a bunch of crap. But,
yeah.
Right now, I'd like to offer up the first YouTube pay-per-view fight, and I think we will schedule John Einreinhofer against Craig Houck. And I will give 5-1 odds in favor of John Einreinhofer. You good with that, John?
Well, I'm retired. So.
Yeah, but is it because in his last 5 fights, Craig Houck had a 3-fight winning streak at Greensburg High School against Ray Shanks?
John's shook.
You're shook,
Did he
John.
fight Did he fight Ray Shanks 3 times?
He fought him 3 times in a row, all at Greensburg High School. So
He shanked 3 times.
yeah, he shanked Shanks 3 times. But I mean, he is a former world champion. So Craig Houck is. Is that why you're afraid? Because he put former world champion on a thing for a fundraiser. He did. But that's enough of that. I just like to every couple months ago let people know what kind of a scam artist Craig Houck is. All right, anything else, guys? Since we're ending on a positive note.
Yeah, well, let's see. I think we actually then did cover all the fights this weekend, I guess.
Yeah, we did. And then a bunch of other stuff in between. I want to thank everybody for listening tonight. Thank everybody listening to Inside Boxing Daily Show that me and Jeremiah do. We will be doing that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday next week. And Thursday, we will be back with John at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, so make sure you check us out every day next week. Make sure, Jeremiah, you want to tell them how to help us out here?
Help us, yes. You know, we need a helping hand, to help us rank a little bit higher. We need comments, reviews on anywhere you listen to, wherever your preferred go-to for podcasts, whether it's Spotify, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes. Just go there, leave us a review. Leave us the best review possible, right? And like us on YouTube. Follow all that you can that helps us. And again, like I've said before, on top of helping us, help us improve the show. I mean, give us some feedback. Let us know what you'd like to hear. Add a segment, take away a segment, whatever you guys like. I mean, we're willing to adapt and adjust to get with the times and make things better for the listener. So, yeah, just give us a shout and thumbs up and all that good stuff.
All right, guys, we will be back next Monday at 11 o'clock at night 11 o'clock Eastern at night for Inside Boxing Daily. Remember, John will join us Thursday night, and John could join us at any point when he's not busy the next morning. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. And at some point, we're going to have to fight about Joshua and Wilder again. You know that's coming. So you can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Spotify, YouTube. Wherever you hear sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for John Einreinhofer, Jeremiah Preisser, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.